What's going on, everybody? I've got a massive update for you today, because the pieces are finally starting to fall into place. And this winter, it looks like we're setting up for something big. I'm talking about a perfect storm of atmospheric ingredients all coming together to deliver what could easily become one of the snowiest, most memorable winters we've seen in years. So, let's roll this forward into tonight, around 2 a.m., and take a look at what's happening. Up near the southern tip of Hudson Bay, we've got this dominant low-pressure system spinning around like a beast. That's our main driver right now. And what's really interesting is that there's a secondary low trying to get going farther south near the northeast and mid-Atlantic. These two are kind of working together, pulling in moisture, spinning up some really widespread precipitation through the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and right up into New England. Meanwhile, the Northwest, they're not done either. That energy from earlier in the week is sliding eastward, spreading those showers into the central U.S. But take a look at what's happening over the West Coast. We're starting to see this warm surge building in from the Pacific. And I've got to say, this right here is a textbook positive PNA pattern. That's the Pacific North American Oscillation. When that goes positive, it pumps warm air into the western states. And what that does is force all that cold, dense air to start sinking right into the east. And that's exactly what we're watching unfold. By the way, if you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, please leave them in the comments. I'll answer them individually as time allows. Also, if you like the video and subscribe to my channel, you'd be very grateful. Now, let's move on. By Tuesday, the cold starts pushing harder. It's that slow, creeping kind of chill that seeps in day by day. And by midweek, around Wednesday, that trough is just digging in deep. Classic setup. Ridge in the west, trough in the east. And when you see that on the maps, you know what's coming? Colder temperatures, more precipitation, and a setup that loves to spawn those broad, messy low-pressure systems over the Great Lakes in the northeast. And man, as we move into Thursday and Friday, it just keeps reinforcing itself. We're in that stage now, where every new model run isn't changing the story. It's just doubling down on it. Cooler than normal conditions all across the eastern half of the country, lingering well into the weekend. Even as it begins to lift out a little bit, we're still running several degrees below average, especially along the east coast and parts of the mid-Atlantic. Then, watch what happens next. The jet stream starts to flex again, and we see new energy diving into the Pacific Northwest. That's your next low-pressure setup forming out there, and that's usually what kicks off the next wave of changes. As it pushes inland, it drags down another round of colder air, flipping us right back into that negative phase pattern, the kind that loves to send more rain and even mountain snow into the northwest while reinforcing the cool air back east by the time we hit the weekend. Around Saturday the 25th, it's looking stormy just about everywhere. The northwest gets soaked, the midwest lights up with rain, and the deep south and Ohio Valley are seeing thunderstorms and scattered showers. That's the atmosphere hitting reset again, keeping this back and forth pattern alive. Then, as we move into the next week, everything starts building towards something bigger. You can see it on the maps, that energy consolidating over the north-central states, a really defined cold front forming with sharp temperature contrast. Behind it, that deep blue Arctic air is ready to surge. It's like the atmosphere is loading the slingshot for another blast. And here's the thing. I've noticed that this whole sequence is starting to resemble what we saw last fall. Remember that setup? Repeated cooldowns, constant reinforcing troughs in the east, and that lingering chill that just refused to let go. It's almost a mirror image of that right now. And if that's the case, we could be heading into a November that's a lot more wintry than people are expecting. We're not just talking about 1 or 2 snowstorms. I'm seeing repeated rounds of heavy snow, widespread ice events, and brutal Arctic blasts that could grip the country from coast to coast. The setup right now is screaming winter chaos. So buckle up, because I'm breaking down exactly who's about to get buried under a mountain of snow, who might just miss out, and why this winter could go down as one we talk about for a long, long time. Before we jump into what's different about this year, let's take a quick step back and remind ourselves what a normal winter usually looks like across the US. If you live along the Gulf Coast, the Deep South, or out in those dry southwestern deserts, snow is more of a novelty than a season. You might see a flurry or two, every couple of years if a powerful Arctic front dips way too far south. But for the most part, those areas rarely see more than 1 or 2 snow events in an entire decade. Move up into the southern plains, the mid-south, the mid-Atlantic, and parts of the Pacific Northwest. And that story changes a bit. These regions typically pick up 1 or 2 winter storms every year, with totals in the ballpark of a foot or 2 of snow by season's end. You'll get your snow days, but nothing too extreme. Now once we head into the Midwest, the northern plains, and up into the Northeast, this is where winter really flexes. These are the zones that routinely see 2 to 3 feet of snow, sometimes 4 or even 5 feet in big years. The most powerful snowstorms on record often hit these areas, from the Great Lakes to New England, dropping 2 feet or more in a single storm. Some winters, those red-shaded regions rack up totals north of 70, even 100 inches. That's your baseline. But now, let's talk about this winter, and why it's shaping up to be wildly different. The key word this year, polar vortex. A strong one. That's the engine behind the kind of snow season we're about to see. Cold air bottled up in Canada will be spilling south over and over again, charging straight into the US heartland. We're talking about wave after wave of Arctic air driving deep into the Rockies, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. These areas are locked in for an extended winter season with more snow, longer cold spells, and a lot more action overall. I'm expecting totals to run 6 to 12 inches above average in many of these spots, just from the increased number of big snow events. And along the East Coast, we might even be looking at multiple nor'easters spinning up this year. Now, if you think that sounds wild, the upper Midwest and Great Lakes might top that. This is where I expect major snowfall surpluses, 12 to 24 inches above average. The mix of deep Arctic air and high moisture will create the perfect breeding ground for intense snow systems, the kind that can dump 18 inches or more in a single go. Unfortunately, not everyone's getting in on the fun. Out west, especially west of the Sierra Nevada, things could be disappointing. Usually you might see 1 or 2 snow events, but this winter looks drier. In fact, the Sierra itself could end up way below average. We're talking 2 to 3 feet less snow than normal. But then we've got the wild card, the southern plains, the deep south, and parts of the Ohio Valley. And let me tell you, this is where things could get unpredictable fast. These areas could either explode with 1 or 2 major ice or snow events, or stay mostly quiet all season. If the jet stream lines up just right, we could easily see a repeat of last winter's major southern snow and ice storms. Speaking of ice, that's going to be a major player this year. We're seeing clear signals that freezing rain and ice storms could be more widespread and severe than usual. From the Rockies to the East Coast, we could see storms laying down a half inch or more of ice, knocking out power, and bringing travel to a standstill. Now, let me show you the areas I'm watching most closely. Across the pink zone, think the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and as far south as Oklahoma and Arkansas, I'm expecting a handful of significant ice events. Maybe 1 or 2 major ones that could be a real problem, but the real bullseye for destructive ice storms? That's the purple zone. Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, where at least 1 or 2 major ice events look increasingly likely this winter. All of this, the cold, the snow, the ice, ties back to one big player, the polar vortex. That's essentially the big swirling pool of cold air parked over the Arctic. When it weakens, chunks of that bitterly cold air spill south into the US. And this winter, that pattern looks primed to unleash multiple Arctic blasts, especially across the northern plains and upper Midwest, with wind chills that could plunge 60 to 70 degrees below zero. That's dangerous cold. The farther south you go, those outbreaks become less frequent. But I still think we'll see sub-freezing temps and maybe even snow reaching into Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. Alright, if you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, leave your region or city in the comments. I'll answer them individually as I have time. Commenting is completely free. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.